The moment the knock drowned out the laughter, I knew the wind had changed. In the townhouse near Sloane's Lake, warm yellow light poured over the boho Scandi decor, a plate of green chile queso still steaming, craft beer cold and beating on guests' hands. Evan raised his glass. "Welcome to the house I bought." The whole room clapped, and then the door flew open. A woman wearing a jacket with the Front Range Title and Escrow logo walked in, holding a yellow envelope. "Mrs. Nora Mercer, I brought the deed that's been recorded at the county. Congratulations to the owner." Every eye turned to me. Evan looked embarrassed, quickly reached for the envelope. She gently dodged and set it directly in my hands. My heart pounded in my throat. Not because of winning or losing, but because at last, the voice of truth was small yet sharp enough. He said the house was in his name, but the county called my name, right in front of everyone. I am Nora, and this is not a story of flaunting a victory. This is the journey of learning to stand upright in my own kitchen. That night, amid the clink of glasses, I understood. There are relationships that need only a single sheet of paper to reveal their true face. I will tell you what led to that knock, the promises, the murky deposits, and how I tidied up my heart as neatly as a file. Welcome to Revenge and Resolve, where we do not retaliate with turmoil, but with light. Thank you for spending time here, giving me a place to breathe and tell. If you want to come with me to the unmasking, please like, subscribe, and leave a note for Nora in the comments. Tonight, I open the envelope. The rest? Let the truth speak for itself. A few weeks before that housewarming party, on an autumn morning in Denver, the sky was as blue as if it had been scrubbed clean, the sunlight gentle but not at all soft, and the air so dry I had to switch on the humidifier the moment I opened my eyes. I put on a slightly pilled puffer, wore sunglasses still coated with the red dust from moving day, then ran to school. The art room was sharp with the smell of acrylic and freshly opened Bristol paper. I taped up Broncos posters for Spirit Week. The kids chirped around the table. One handed me a small brush as if handing over a fistful of joy. "Miss, can we paint rocky clouds today?" "Of course. Paint whatever makes you breathe deeper." As the kids dragged blue into bands of mountains, I told myself quietly, someday, I would open an art therapy studio for children who have had to grow up faster than their age. A warm room, a few racks of paints, a few chairs low enough that they wouldn't feel small. As evening fell, Evan and I walked through the Rhino Art District, murals rising so high they touched the rim of the sky, the smell of iced coffee mingling with fresh, dry paint. I pointed at a gray deer sprayed in soft strokes and told him about a free weekend workshop for students in need. If kids have a place to make a mess, they'll feel less like a burden. Evan nodded, but his eyes slid along windows reflecting for lease signs. West Colfax is on the rise. Equity will pop fast. If we add a backyard unit, short-term renting would be great, he said, his voice even as if reading from a script. I smiled, hiding my cold hands in my pockets. At times, I wanted to tell him about the student who had just lost her dog and painted a cloud that could bark. But he said, ROI is what measures how dreams turn into money, you know. I nodded, though my dream didn't want to be measured by that ruler. In the evening, back at the townhouse, cardboard boxes still lined the hallway. I wrote "Kitchen Fragile" in big black marker on one lid, covering the teapot my mother had sent from far away. Evan carried a box of glassware and bowls, whistling a tune from the kitchen radio. "Let me arrange it," he said, then half joking, half serious. "My house is carrying this mortgage, so I get to decide what looks good where." I looked at him and let it pass with a smile, thinking he was just teasing. I turned the humidifier up a notch, the scent of steam mingling with new pine, sounding like a self-soothe. It's okay, we're just starting. Lydia, Evan's mother, stopped by at 5:30, her tweed coat heavy with perfume. She handed over a box of pastries, looked around as if inspecting a model unit. Nora, you're handy. That shelf is passable. She smiled, her eyes cold. Then, as if offhand, she laid a hand on the new kitchen counter. You're lucky Evan can carry this mortgage. Evan winked. Right. My house. She took it as fact, and Evan's joke landed right on a tender spot. I stood by the sink, the filtered water I had just poured suddenly tasting bitter at the tip of my tongue. I answered, I'm grateful to have a roof to start again under. Ma'am. She curled her lip and switched to how to keep kitchen items from getting messy. As if there were a competition here where I was the new contestant, and the invisible trophy already sat in her hand. That night, I wiped down the cabinet glass, added felt pads to the chairs, set a cactus on the windowsill. Little things, but my way of getting closer to my studio dream. I opened my notebook, sketched a path for a small county grant, listed schools with many students in need. Evan walked by, glanced, then kissed my hair, speaking in a budget voice. When you have a clear plan, I'll look at the cash flow. I nodded, accepting the promise that hovered like a wisp of smoke. 2 days later, I sat in class while the kids glued collages from old magazines. I texted Evan, Don't forget to take the sunglasses to the shop. That pair still dusted red is my favorite, the only one that shields stinging eyes in the high plains wind. He sent back a selfie with the caption, Approved. By evening, the glasses still hadn't been taken. I wasn't angry. I just added it to a quiet list, where each tiny thing whispers into a larger truth. He's busy talking about equity growth, and I'm busy keeping my heart from cracking dry like lips in winter. On the weekend night, we walked around the lake, restaurant lights shimmering on the water. I told Evan about the student exhibition I wanted to mount. Theme Home. Each child bringing a scrap of a story, maybe a corner of Grandma's dress or a wrinkled bus ticket. Evan said, Cute, then circled back to the house. I'll refinance when rates drop. Equity will pop then. I asked quietly, What if one day the name on the papers is mine? He snorted, You're as funny as your students. I turned my face into the wind and let it dry the tear that had started to form. That night, hugging myself in the puffed jacket, I wrote in my journal, I thought he was joking. Turns out he wasn't. And I tightened my shoelaces, as if cinching a truth that was going to need distance to run. Red flags don't flash. They quietly gather around me like the red dust clinging to my sunglasses since moving day. Evan keeps all the online accounts, mortgage, utilities, even the bank app. You only need a supplementary card, he says gently, as if soothing, his hand on my shoulder warm enough to make me step back from the question, why? I remind myself, I'm an art teacher. I know how to mix colors patiently, but the opacity of those passwords isn't a palette, it's a wall. One noon, the mail carrier rang the bell and handed over a certified mail slip with my name clearly printed. The moment I signed, Evan tore the envelope open in a flash. Just junk from the title company, he laughed, patting my shoulder, his eyes not laughing. I heard a very dry rip, the sound of tearing paper carrying the smell of rust right on the tip of my tongue, the smell of something being taken before I could name it. I stood there, my hands still stained with my students' green ink, thinking of the forms that always have a line for parental consent. But for this house, where is my signature? The new garage smells of wood and anti-damp paint. So tidy that even a lockbox left in plain sight looks like decor. On the lid, Evan stuck a label in block letters, Trust Docs Private. I photographed the label, not to rummage, but to remind myself that some doors in this house are still locked, and the key isn't in my hand. Each time I walk by, the word private nips at my eyes. When I ask, "What's that box?" he answers calmly, as if nothing. "Family documents. You don't need to worry." That "don't need to worry," placed in a child's hand holding a paintbrush, is reassurance. Placed in the hand of a wife standing in her own garage, it becomes a string slowly pulling away the right to know. Touring a few nearby houses to learn layouts, I notice a habit of Evan's. When an agent asks about paperwork, he always answers first, unruffled. "Title Sole is in my name," like a rehearsed slogan. I stand beside him, a polite shadow. Back home, Lydia, his mother, sends me a link. 10 things a wife must respect about the financial pillar. She adds a smiley emoji. I reply, "Yes, I respect unity." Then turn off the screen and make myself a hot cocoa to soothe the small hiss in my chest. That evening, I pick a moment when the only sound in the kitchen is the humidifier's low whir. "Whose name is on the deed?" "Evan?" I ask, trying to keep my voice like when I guide the kids mixing colors. Clear, gentle, not accusatory. "Mine," he answers, quick and cold as a switch. "You just handle the paint colors." That sentence drops between us like a nail slipping from the hand. I don't argue. I just taste rust again at the tip of my tongue. The taste of being stripped of a right. The taste of the word wife shrunk down to decorator. The next day, I run into Mateo, the blue-collar neighbor who teaches me tricks for keeping cacti alive under Denver sun. "Nora, in Denver the deed is public record. You can look it up," he says, his voice light as wind through birches. "You don't have to guess." I smile and say I trust my husband, but my eyes can't hide a spark of doubt that has caught flame. I stand at a fork. On one side, the desire to believe. On the other, a wrongness growing like mountain shadows late in the day. I remember my world. In class, when a child has a brush taken away, I don't tell them, "Don't overthink it." I hand them a new one and ask, "Do you want to check together where the old one went?" That night, I open my notebook and write 3 lines. 1. Ask Evan for access. 2. If not, check the deed on the county website. 3. Whatever the result, don't forget I want a room where the kids can paint their home. I don't want to turn a marriage into an investigation, but I also can't build the kids' dreams on tiles where my name has been erased. I close the notebook, turn off the light, press a hand to my chest, and breathe deep. In the dark, I hear myself say very softly, "Nora, stand up straight." And somewhere beyond the wall, the humidifier keeps its low whir, reminding me that no matter how dry the air, I can add moisture to breathe. In Denver, the truth can't hide forever under a thin layer of snow. It just needs the sun to stay up long enough. Late at night in the teacher's room, when the smells of markers, Bristol paper, and cold coffee blended into a familiar scent, I opened my laptop and typed Denver clerk and recorder. The search page came up, the Grantor Chach Grantee index scrolling on like a timeline with the mouse cursor as a flashlight. I entered my full name. A line of text popped up, neat and cold, like a blade gleaming under fluorescent light. Trustee's deed to Grantee, Nora Eun-Mercer, a married woman, as her sole and separate property. Next to it was a small note, record language, County English. I stared for a long time, as if I blinked, my name would go dark. But it was there, clear, definite. And under the source column it said, Mercer Family Legacy Trust, Evan's great-grandparent. Clause protecting the spouse who cares for the family. I clicked open the scan, read further in the trustee's explanation. The family trust had paid for the house. The clause required title to vest, transfer into the name of the spouse who met the primary caregiver criteria in the first 2 years. The trustee had executed the deed under that condition. I heard the school's basement fan whine softly through the door crack, my chest both cold as touching steel and warm, like taking a long breath after a swim. I printed the record. The printer chugged and pulled out a page bearing the strings, "Document No," and "Book, hot page," dry numbers that to me looked as beautiful as a correctly proportioned contour line. I also screenshot the chain of title page, saved the PDF into a folder named Home Fact. My fingers trembled slightly as I typed a note: query date, time, clerk file by. I don't want to turn a marriage into a debate match, but the truth also needs a place to stand, like nails need boards. I opened the Ring app and scrolled back through the notification history. 3 days ago, the frame shows Evan on the front steps, late sun slanting across half his face. In his hand is a yellow envelope printed "Recorder Mailing." He turns very quickly, slips it into his coat pocket, then walks into the house. I pause at the exact moment he looks around, that unconscious habit when holding something one doesn't want seen, not exactly wrongdoing, but the shadow of a secret. I texted myself in notes, "My name on the deed isn't a trophy, it's ground." In Denver, people like to talk about equity, ROI. I think of the small room I dream of for the kids. Paint shelves, a worn rug, a window looking out on Sloan's Lake. If one day they ask, "Miss, what is home?" I want to answer, "It's where your name is called correctly." The record page blinked its cursor. I heard coworkers slack pings, heard someone laugh in the hallway. I didn't cheer and I didn't cry. I just sat up straighter and laid my hand on the printout as if to reassure my heart that I wasn't inventing what I was seeing. When I closed the laptop, I called Mateo. "Did you find it?" he asked. "Yes," I said, in a voice as normal as taking Monday morning attendance. "My name is on the deed. The source is the Mercer Family Trust, with a clause protecting the family caregiver." Mateo laughed. "Good for you," then reminded me, "Keep the document number, book, page. Don't lose them." I slipped the printout into a cardstock folder in my backpack, between lesson plans and the kids' drawings. On the way home, the high plains wind dried my cheeks, but inside my chest there was a strange, warm halo. I thought of Evan, of the line, "Mine. You just handle the paint colors." Tomorrow, perhaps we will have to speak very slowly, very clearly about the house, about trust, about keys. But tonight, amid the basement fan and the rustle of paper, I know one thing. The truth doesn't need anyone's permission to stand upright. It has been recorded. And at the end of that line of text, cold as steel, I heard a breath. My own. The evening had no greeting, only a notice. Evan set his phone on the kitchen table, turned the screen toward me. "I've locked your secondary card. From now on, all spending goes through me. Car keys?" He held out his hand like a command. I set down the dolphin keychain. "Whose name is on the deed, Evan?" "Mine." The answer was as quick as flipping a switch. I stepped back half a pace, pulled the home fact binder from the chair. "The county records say otherwise." I read the exact line. "Trustee's deed. Grantee. Nora Eun-Mercer." He lunged to snatch the paper. I dodged, my hand still gripping the binder's edge. In that moment, I understood. The issue was no longer paper, but control. That night, I texted Mateo. "I'm okay. I just need you to know my name is on the deed." He replied, "Keep the documents on you." I photographed everything, sent the PDF to myself, to my school email, slipped the printout into a yellow file folder, and hid it in the kitchen fragile box, among the porcelain bowls I love. I changed my iCloud password, turned off location sharing. Then I sat on the living room floor, leaned my back against a box, and listened to the humidifier breathe a thin mist. There was a brief scent of newly dried paint, while my heart went damp as if it were raining. Evan paced the house, his footsteps even and cold. His mother FaceTimed, her voice carrying over the speaker. "You have to be firm. Women need to know their place." He nodded as if I weren't sitting 3 steps away. I didn't argue. I poured a glass of water and let my hands cling to the cool of the glass so they would stop shaking. In my head, a sentence appeared, clear as black ink. The truth doesn't need anyone's permission. I touched the binder cover, the rough board holding me in place, keeping me from drifting with the panic. That night, I lay on the thin mattress in the office, among brush tubes, paint tubes, and the sketches my students had given me. Outside, the high plains wind slid through the crack of the door like a sigh. I closed my eyes and listened to my heartbeat slow. My name was still there, on the county's paper, in the home fact folder, and in my chest. Tomorrow morning may still be hard, but tonight, in the house whose every brick I've touched, I choose to sleep a little, so that tomorrow I can wake and take one more step toward what's right. The next morning, I met Kendra Hollis at a small coffee shop overlooking the Lodo tracks. She brought a clear plastic folder, pulled out a thick printout with a title I never thought I'd see in my hands. Owner's Policy, Schedule A. Kendra touched her pen to the first line, her voice calm and firm. Insured, Nora Eun-Mercer. I felt my heartbeat slow, as if someone had pinned a tack into a map and said, "This is the true position." Kendra explained gently. The title insurance policy had been issued in my name. The title search was clean. Any changes in ownership must be recorded with the county. And the county recorded your name? She smiled. Not anyone else's. Kendra introduced me to Priya Desai, a lawyer small in stature but bright-eyed. We sat by the window, Denver sunlight passing through the glass and pooling on the latte cup. Priya listened as I told it all. The secondary card cut off, the banking app locked, the car key taken back, the times I was threatened to get out of the house. She didn't rush to label, just gathered the pieces. Here, public records are the loudest voice, and what you're describing looks very much like a form of coercive control. Cutting off money, threatening eviction, hiding documents, those aren't marital disagreements. That can be economic abuse. Priya spoke of a civil protection order, as a temporary door so I could breathe and put things back in order. No one should use money or a house to tighten a noose around you, she said, her voice both warm and direct. We called the clerk and recorder's office. On the other end was Sierra Benali, a crisp voice, friendly like a neighbor. I read the document number, book page, recording date. Sierra typed quickly, then confirmed. A perfect match. If you need a certified copy, we can issue it right away. I thanked her and heard Sierra add, "Keep a copy in your wallet. Public records are there to protect people." Those words landed in my ear like a blessing. Kendra suggested we print a small go bag on the spot. A copy of the deed, Schedule A, the county index page, a note listing emergency numbers, Priya, the county office, close friends. I clipped everything into another yellow folder labeled Home Fact. As we stood up, Kendra touched my hand lightly. Nora, you don't need to fight with a loud voice. You just need your truth to go with you. Priya checked the time, then looked at me, as if weighing the wind to come. You said the housewarming is this weekend? All his relatives, friends, co-workers will be there? I nodded. Priya and Kendra looked at each other, and a simple plan clicked into place. Then let the record walk into the room by itself. No arguing in the hallway, no tug of war in the kitchen, Just someone from Title and Escrow at the door, holding a stamped manila envelope, saying the congratulation that public records allow. Congratulations to the owner. That evening, I went home earlier than usual. I reset my desk, put pens, scissors, and folders into a small box. I wrote in my notebook my name, the recording date, the person who verified. Then I took a deep breath. I texted Mateo one line. The weekend might be loud. If you hear anything, don't worry, I'm okay. He replied with a sticker of a scarf-wearing fox, clever and quick. I turned on the humidifier, letting the thin vapor rise like a prayer. In my head, I practiced the sentence that would keep me steady. In Denver, the truth has an address, and it's in my hands. I no longer need to convince anyone to believe my feelings. I just need to present the stamped paper. Kendra will knock on time. Sierra is ready to issue a certified copy if needed. Priya stands behind me like a safety line. The housewarming will have cake, laughter, even some elbow nudges about his house. And then an envelope will open, a name will be read, and the room will have to relearn how to address the owner. I don't wish for anyone to be embarrassed. I only wish to be calm when I say thank you. And if my hand still shakes, I will rest it on the Home Pos Fact folder, to remember that no voice, however loud, is allowed to be bigger than the truth already entered into the county record. From the next morning, I set myself a new study schedule: learn to breathe, learn to speak, and learn money. I sit at the kitchen table, open a blank notebook, write the words 50, 30, 20 large, like a promise. Essential needs, the things I want, and the portion set aside for myself. I go to the credit union near the market, open a separate account in the name of Nora Eun-Mercer, request a new debit card, turn on push notifications for every transaction. For next month's paycheck, I schedule an automatic transfer before anyone has any intention of touching it. In the evening, I bring the scanner to the dining table, feed each page under the small light. Certified copy of the deed, owner's policy, Schedule A, the county office's confirmation email, utility bills, pay stubs, even scraps that seem trivial like a paint receipt. I name the files simply Date Name Truth, then back them up to the cloud, print another set and clip it into the Home Fact folder. Amid the humidifier's soft whir, I feel my heartbeat return, slower and steadier. At midday, I stand before the bathroom mirror, hand on the folder, practice a 3-beat sentence. I am the owner, according to the county record, and I am here. The first time dries my throat, the second makes my palms sweat, the third I look straight into my own eyes and nod. I learn to drop my shoulders whenever I'm tense, count 4 beats in, 4 beats hold, 4 beats out. Each word is like a small nail, settling firm into the doorframe inside me. Mateo stops by in the afternoon, bringing a toolbox and 2 tiny door cameras. More peace of mind, he says. We choose angles that cover the entry and the hallway. The doorbell chirps once. The green light blinks. Light but steady. Not to hunt anyone, only to record everything exactly as it happens, if someone loses their temper or threatens. I open the app on my phone, see the frame of my doorway appear, calm and bright. Suddenly, the house feels like it's grown a new layer of skin, less exposed to the wind. I book an appointment with a counselor at a clinic specializing in supporting people squeezed financially in marriage. The counseling room on the 2nd floor looks out over Sloan's Lake, afternoon sun sliding through a sheer curtain. She asks what I want. I say, to trust my memory again. Together we draw a small diagram: who to call when needed, what to keep in my bag, the numbers I should know by heart. No one tells me I have to be strong right away. They simply offer a chair for me to sit and set the folder on my lap, reminding, Nora has rights. I walk down the stairs as if carrying a full basket, yet light. At night, I cook a simple pot of bean soup, put on my favorite indie track, wipe down the counter. I stick a small note on the cabinet door. No arguing in the kitchen. Only the truth. I text Kendra thanks for printing extra certified copies. Text Priya that I've organized all the paperwork and will go to bed early. Before turning off the lights, I hang a small painting I've left unfinished in the living room, the Denver blue thinning like a breath. I rest my forehead on the doorframe and softly say once more the sentence I've practiced. I am the owner according to the county record. The sentence doesn't ring loud, but it stands upright. It doesn't knock anything over. It simply puts things back in their place. The next day, I teach. Smile with the kids as they show off their Spirit Week posters. Stop by Reno on the way home to pick up a few tubes of paint. I set the home fact folder beside the jar of brushes and find I no longer tremble when I look at the numbers and seals. I realize my strength is not loud. It underlines on paper, saves into files, names things correctly, and goes with me every step. When the evening wind blows through the backyard, I think about the weekend party. Cold beers, laughter, prying eyes, and a manila envelope will call my name in the middle of the room. I smile lightly, take a pen, and add another line in the notebook. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, say my name. The music in the living room jolted to a stop as if someone had just pulled the plug. The queso was still steaming, the strand of yellow bulbs trembled with the draft slipping through the door crack. Kendra stood right at the threshold, her coat printed with the Front Range, Title, and Escrow logo beaded with a few raindrops, smiled politely and raised the manila envelope to her chest. Mrs. Nora Eun-Mercer? The whole room turned to look at me. Evan stood among his coworkers, half-finished beer in hand, his smile stiffening like a fresh coat of paint not yet dry. I heard my heart knock slowly, then calmly stepped forward half a step. Kendra broke the seal with a neat slice. Paper flashed white under the lights. She enunciated each word. Trustee's deed. Grantor, Mercer family, Legacy Trust. Grantee, Nora Eun-Mercer. County recording stamp. Book, page number, date, and time have been filed. She handed over an additional blue-backed packet. This is the owner's policy, title insurance, listing you as the insured. Evan let out a hoarse laugh, trying to keep his tone bland. She's just a title employee, reading for fun. This house is in my name. Kendra didn't move, as if accustomed to these reflexes. County records are public, she replied slowly, each word set on the table. Anyone can look them up, and this is a certified copy I pulled today. Lydia cut in, a sparkling pearl necklace at her throat. Oh, please, just technicalities. Who cares about those dry papers? Her voice was like perfume shooting straight to the brain. I hadn't yet spoken when Priya stepped out of the crowd. Dark coat, eyes straight ahead. I had texted her to come beforehand. Technicalities are exactly the rule of law, ma'am, Priya said softly but firmly. And tonight, everything Mr. Evan has just declared before guests is false in front of witnesses. For a very small moment, Evan looked at me. I knew that look, when he wanted to turn everything his way. He reached out, quick and sharp. Give it here. I stepped back half a step, gripping the folder edge tight. Before it could be snatched, Mateo was already standing right between us, his tall frame shielding me, the other hand lifting his phone. Easy, man, the camera's rolling, he said, even-toned. I heard a spoon drop onto a plate somewhere behind me, heard someone softly go, "Oh." The air in the room thickened like beer foam left too long. A few of Evan's friends quietly set their glasses on the table, looked toward Lydia. Someone drew her back by the shoulder, like a gentle nudge. Stop. I opened my mouth, my voice not loud but clear, like the sentence I'd practiced hundreds of times in the mirror. You lied to me, cut off my money, threatened to throw me out of the house. This is the county paper. This is my house. Everyone, please be witnesses to this statement. The crowd murmured, then settled. The DJ hurriedly lowered the music. Evan still stood there, his face paling by the minute. He hurled his glass to the floor, the shatter of glass sprang up like hail. Someone shouted, "Hey!" Mateo didn't move. Kendra angled her body to shield the packet. Priya took out her phone and dialed. I heard myself inhale, hold for 4 counts, exhale. The door opened. Officer Riley came in with a colleague. The neighbors must have called. He swept his eyes over the room, glanced at the broken glass, then looked at me. Is anyone hurt? I shook my head. We received a report about a disturbance and public documents. Priya handed him the certified copy, pointing out the county stamp and document number. Kendra already had the clerk and recorder page open on her iPad, scrolled to my name. Riley nodded, noted the page number, and photographed the screen into the report. Mateo held up his phone to show the clip he'd just recorded. Evan lunging to snatch the papers, my hand retreating, my friend stepping in, my voice speaking the memorized line. No one was shouting, only the sound of glass cracking. Riley looked at Evan. Sir, you're going to keep your distance from her tonight. I advise Ms. Nora to file an emergency protective order in the morning for economic abuse and threats. Here's a provisional case number. Lydia seemed about to say something more. Those 2 words, technicalities, again. But the words caught in her throat. Perhaps she heard the words county and report. 2 words women of her generation half believe and half fear. Evan's friends started grabbing their coats. A few passing by laid a light hand on my arm, like an apology on behalf of someone who doesn't know how to apologize. The DJ shut the music off entirely. The yellow string light still hung there, but no longer warm. I stepped to Kendra, took back the packet, thanked her with my eyes. Priya stood beside me, neither advancing nor retreating, the exact distance of someone guarding a boundary. Riley read back a few summary lines, asked if I wanted to gather personal items right now. I looked around. The kitchen fragile boxes we hadn't finished opening, the painting I'd test hung on the wall, the humidifier blinking. Strangely, I didn't feel panic. The paper had called my name correctly in front of everyone who'd heard it wrong. If I needed to leave, I would take the certified copy, the home fact binder, and a puffer jacket. But right now, I just nodded, asked him to add to the report. Deed read publicly, misrepresentation noted, attempt to seize documents, recorded. He nodded, wrote quickly, and handed me a small slip with the case number. Evan leaned against the kitchen counter, eyes reddened with anger, silent. Suddenly he seemed smaller to me. Not because he'd lost, but because the things he thought he owned all this time had never been his. My voice, my name on the paper, the house where I breathe steadily. Lydia turned her back. A relative guided her toward the door. Mateo picked up the shards, dropped them into a trash bag like tidying away the last noise of the evening. Kendra closed her iPad, greeted me with a nod. Priya squeezed my hand lightly. Tomorrow morning we'll go file. Tonight, rest. I stayed standing in the middle of the room, heard the ceiling fan hum back to life, heard ice melting in the pitcher. Someone switched on the kitchen light, a soft white. I looked out the window, Sloan's Lake quiet as a picture hanging in my studio. For the first time in months, the house no longer echoed with Evan's, my house. It called only one name, very simple, Nora. In my head, every excuse suddenly went dead quiet. Not because I spoke louder, but because the paper had spoken for me, clearly and fairly. I inhaled, held for 4 counts, exhaled, and smiled very small, as if just setting a painting into its proper place on the wall. The explosion, I thought, doesn't come from the sound of the glass shattering, but from the silence of all the evasions. In Denver, justice is sometimes only a name read aloud before friends, neighbors, and the very person who tried to make you doubt yourself. Tonight, that name is mine, and so is this house. The morning arrived earlier than usual, Denver's sky clear as a fresh sheet of paper. I passed through the courthouse security scanner, holding the hard folder Priya had prepared. The deed with the county's certified stamp, the blue owner's policy, printouts of the message log where Evan cut off money and threatened to throw me out, a USB containing the housewarming night video, along with Officer Riley's report. Priya walked beside me, her hand warm and steady. "Everything's in the record," she said softly. "Today, we just tell it in exactly the language they understand. Time, seals, and boundaries." The courtroom was small, light wood, the national emblem hanging high. I sat in the front row, listening to the soft thud of the bailiff's shoes. Evan walked in, white shirt, crooked tie, eyes carrying the entire shattered night before. Lydia sat behind, clutching her bag, not looking at me. When Judge Carter sat down, the room was as quiet as a morning lake. Priya rose, introduced the file, and handed each document to the clerk. The certified proof of ownership in the name of Ms. Nora Eun-Mercer. The title insurance policy listing her as the insured. The message log showing control of spending and threats of removal from the residence. The video of the housewarming event. The intervention report by Officer Riley. Each time a red seal appeared on the screen, I felt my heart drop a notch. "Ms. Nora," the judge asked, his voice calm. "Do you want to say anything briefly?" I stood, my hands intertwined. "Your Honor, I just want to stay in my own home, to breathe, to lock the door, to use the card in my name." That night, in front of friends, my husband said the house was his. After that, he cut the cards, locked the banking app, kept the car keys, and said I could leave the house if I didn't follow the rules. I was afraid, and I'm here to stop being afraid. I sat down, listening to the clerk's pen run steadily. Evan stood, trying to smile. "Your Honor, that's a misunderstanding. The trust is just a technical tool to optimize finances. The house is mine. I pay the mortgage, Priya didn't interrupt. She simply turned the screen toward the judge and slid to the pre-printed line. Trustee's deed. Grantee. Nora Eun-Mercer, as her sole and separate property. Judge Carter tilted his head, reading slowly as if a prayer. Acts of economic control and threats of removal from housing are abuse. He looked up, eyes straight at us. A 1-year protection order is in effect right now. Mr. Eun-Mercer, you are not to enter the house, not to access the garage, not to harass, contact, or authorize others to do so. You will hand your keys and garage opener to the bailiff on the spot. Any retrieval of personal items must be scheduled with police supervision. The only sound was the metal of key rings striking one another. Evan swallowed dryly. That's my house. The judge's expression didn't change. The county record says otherwise. He signed, set down the pen. The gavel struck once. Dry. Neat. I felt my shoulders drop as if I had just set down a backpack full of stones. The bailiff came over, hand opening a small pouch. Evan took out each key, hesitating as if peeling a habit off himself. The garage remote lay in his palm, inert. I remembered the familiar nightly click. Also a tiny kind of power, but immense. Priya received the keys from the bailiff and turned to hand them to me. "Keep them safe," she said, her voice softening. Lydia exhaled quietly behind us. I couldn't tell whether for me or for her son. The judge continued. The temporary order confirms that Ms. Nora retains possession of the house for the duration of the protection period. Mr. Evan may prepare a list of personal items and coordinate with police to enter the house by schedule. Any violation will result in arrest pursuant to the order. Ms. Nora, if you need to change the locks, do so. If you need further support, there is a hotline and the court clinic right downstairs. I nodded, holding the order tight as if holding a new breath. Stepping out of the courtroom, the hallway was cool as if snow had just fallen. Priya handed me a copy of the protection order and quickly listed the to-dos. Change locks, update the security system, inform trusted neighbors, reopen a separate account, route my paycheck to my account. I nodded, wrote in my notebook. Today. In the corner of the hall, Evan leaned against the wall, eyes red, Lydia's hand on his shoulder. I didn't go closer. Not because of anger anymore, but because the boundary just drawn in black ink was so clear that any apology would also have to pass through the proper door. As I pushed the door open, sunlight poured in. I suddenly remembered last night, the room frozen after the glass shattered, and Officer Riley's last words. "File in the morning." I had done that. Now, holding the order and the keys, I felt a decent weight in my palms. In Denver, justice is sometimes only 2 short sentences. The protection order is in effect. And the county record says otherwise. The rest, the things I will plant in the garden, the painting I will hang on the wall, the breath I will reclaim in the living room, are mine. 3 months later, I hung a small wooden sign by the door. Art and Breath Studio, Community Art Therapy. The ground floor of the house suddenly felt warm like a kitchen. The smell of acrylic paint, freshly unwrapped Bristol paper, the chattering laughter of kids pasting collages onto the window frames looking straight out at Sloan's Lake glinting in the sun. Mateo brought over a tray of Palisade peach cobbler, fragrant, set it on the table, and winked. "Your house is legitimate now. The opening has to be sweet." Kendra came after, gently hanging the framed deed on the wall near the door. The private sequences of numbers had been covered, leaving only my name as clear as the morning. I stepped back a pace, took a deep breath, and heard the wind chime softly ring on the porch. Late in the afternoon, the first class began. I guided the kids to place their hands on their chests, breathe slowly, then write their names in the corner of the paper. A little girl asked, "Miss, does signing like that mean it's mine?" I nodded. "Yes, it's yours." In that moment, I understood why I had gone all the way I just had. He had tried to lock me in with money and paper. I opened the door with another piece of paper, recorded at the county. I changed the locks, opened my own account, paid the bills in my own name, and taped the art class schedule right next to the deed to remind myself. A home is not just brick walls. A home is the right to have your name called in broad daylight. Thank you to Mateo for the trays of sweets, Kendra for the frame that shone like a lamp, Priya for the calm words, and the neighbors for standing as witnesses when I was shaking the most. Best revenge? Live well, sign your own name correctly, and teach others to sign for themselves. If you believe that the truth in public records is a light against financial abuse, comment 1. Remember to like and subscribe so we can keep telling family justice stories where every name is returned to its rightful place.